Okay, hello. This is the Gin and Tonic Show. It is Sunday. It is the 15th of October. And hopefully today everything is going to work. I see that there's a good stream at the moment, which is happening over into the whole channel into Vaughan as well. So I'm hoping that there's going to be hardly any delay for a change. Okay, this is the Gin and Tonic Show. This is a discussion platform. And what we do is we talk about Islam. And what we do is in the beginning, I like starting off with the definition so that we know what we're talking about. Then we're going to go through different things. I don't, because of what's happened now in the last week, I didn't spend too much time on this. And I'd like to, um, channel is messed up as usual. No, come on, guys. I don't believe this. I mean, now I check, double check, triple check, did a sound check, did everything, and I can see that there's something which is lagging. And here the performance looks excellent. I don't know why I have an excellent connection and everything, but I can see that it's a bit I don't know what is happening with Vaughan. Okay, but luckily we have the option of going to YouTube, so that's it. So the way we do the definitions, then we do a video of the week, misconception of the week, news, and then hadith of the week. Now, today, please don't expect that we're going to spend the whole evening on Paris, because I think there's too much speculation. So I'd like to keep it more philosophical. So we'll talk about that in a bit. So who are we and why are we talking about Islam? This is something that I don't understand why this is still, after all these years, after decades, after centuries, why is this so difficult to understand that there are people who don't believe that gods exist? I don't understand why this should be difficult. And yet, if I am a human being and I add the belief in a God, in one personal, specific God, then there is a word for it, which is a theist. So if I don't have this, I need to label myself as something that I'm not, and that is an atheist. Like I'm an a golfer. I'm all sorts of things, which I don't believe. This is necessary, but it seems that some people simply cannot understand it, and that's why I need to repeat it again and again and again. I am a human being. I'm a human being without anything added. There's no belief in gods or anything that I don't have a reason to believe or where I think it is not true. I will not believe it. And that's it. It's so easy. I don't know why people need to make a big spiel around this. So I'm also an agnostic, because the atheist does not believe and the agnostic does not know for sure. So I do not claim that I know for sure that there are no gods, because somewhere in the universe, or in a parallel universe, or some other place, there might well be gods. It's just that here in this universe, I don't see a reason to believe that there are gods. Now, this is true for babies as well. I don't understand why humans, especially Muslims, seem to think that if you're born, you're automatically a Muslim. No, you're not. You're a baby. It's a blank slate. A baby is taught a language by the parents. It grows up inside a culture, and the culture then determines what language it speaks. And apparently, the culture also determines which God to pick. Or, if it starts thinking, to abandon all these, well, unjustified, unwarranted beliefs. So it doesn't speak a language, it simply does not believe in God. It doesn't understand the concept of a God. And I don't care how many times Christians and Muslims and all sorts of people want to tell me that babies automatically have this inherent belief because Mr. Barrett and Dr. Petrovich, they made some studies showing that children are actually quite susceptible to believing certain things. I don't care. It doesn't mean that babies automatically believe in gods. So that's just it. Okay, so we know now the difference between theist, atheist, gnostic, and agnostic. All right, the one is belief, the other one is knowledge. I don't make any claims. I don't say that there is or isn't or whatever. So if a theist then says there is a God, well, then the theist bloody well has to come up and deliver some sort of evidence, some compelling evidence, not just show the Quran, show me the front cover and imagine that I will now sink to the ground just because I'm so in awe of the cover of the Quran or the Bible or it doesn't matter what. It doesn't work like that. Now, the same thing is true. Does anybody believe that there are dragons? No, because there's no reason to believe that there are dragons. If I tell you that I have a Mazda in the garage, I think nobody will want to check, or a Toyota or whatever. But if I tell them I have a dragon in the garage, then people will say, whoa, 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 hang on, now you better come up with some evidence. At least I hope they do. So this is the same thing. I don't believe in dragons. That makes me an a-dragonist. Do I think about dragons all my life and wonder what my life would be like without dragons? No. And the same is true with gods. I don't care what they are. I really don't give a continental damn what gods think, say, do, or what people think their particular gods say. So there we go. Then we talk about Islam. Why are we talking about Islam? Well, Islam touches all of us, as we see. And it's not that Islam is just something for some other people. It's always the others. No, no, no. Islam is part of all our lives at the moment. I mean, nobody can fly anywhere without security checks, and which have increased dramatically since 2001. I mean, I remember just rocking up at the airport, grabbing the next plane, and then, you know, just flying to New York. But you can't do that anymore. Now you need to go to the internet. You need to go and I don't know, you need to apply for all sorts of permits, and you need to tell them, well, I'm going to be coming into the US, and I am so-and-so, and my height is this, and I smoke a pipe backwards, and I have this. I mean, the things that they are doing is absolutely stupid. Anyway, so Islam is now coming into Europe as well, where we have a lot of refugees or migrants or whatever you want to call them. And this is causing an additional problem for Europe. So we're talking about Islam. Why and how are we talking about Islam? So we're talking about Islam because there's a lot of misconceptions. So we want to help people. That's the one thing. The other thing is, I personally think it's a good idea to bring out the facts, to tell people more objectively what Islam is and what it isn't. So I don't believe in any God. So I'm not here to proselytize or to deconvert or convert or anything, anybody. I just like, you know, for people to know the facts, to know what we're talking about when we talk about Islam. So talking about Islam is not something where you say, well, we have to do this and we have to do that, and this is bullshit or something, and that's why you don't need to do this because my God has a longer pinky or something. No. I don't care. I don't care if you want to believe. If you want to believe in a God, fine, that's God. Why should I care? It's just when your belief starts affecting me, that's when I care. And then if your belief makes you lie to others, that's when I care, and that's when I say, whoa, 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 let's just get this straight and let's just get the facts on the table. This is what we're trying to do. So it's quite amazing where we see how many times the Quran tells people they're not allowed to lie, and yet they lie like it's amazing, left, right, and center, and all the time. So the next thing is, a lot of people say Islam is a religion and it's a religion of peace. Okay, that's absolute nonsense. Number one, Islam is not just a religion. Religion sits in the middle, but it's a socio-political system, an ideology, and that's a political ideology, and it's also a worldview. And all this is based on religion, which determines all these other elements. And this ideology, this political ideology, is taking some sentences from the Quran and saying, well, because it says you are allowed to punish somebody who does X, Y, Z, then this belongs into the Ministry of Justice. And because you're not allowed to use interest rates or something, and money needs to be backed up by something, some goods or something, then this belongs into the Department of Commerce. And you need to pay this much in taxes, and you need to do this one in interest rates. Now we have a finance department, and we have and justice department, and then because this is how you treat prisoners of war. We need foreign affairs. This is how you treat the slaves, your slavery department. So, you get all these different departments, and suddenly you have the whole state. And this is what the whole thing of Islam is about. It's creating a state. And this is what Muhammad was supposedly doing, and that is he was the first caliph. He started a state. And then the whole thing between Sunnis and Shias is about who is the next caliph. So it's always about politics. So since its inception, Islam has been about politics, not just about religion. Religion is the basis. So the God is the one who determines what you're going to do with the state. So the constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran says in its preamble that there is a God, and this God is the ultimate authority, and everything is due to the God. So it's a political ideology. Yes, there's also a religion involved, but please don't come to me and say this is just another religion. It is not. It's a special case because Islam makes a lot of claims. It claims it's the final, it's the last one, it's got the final prophet, it's got this and this and this, and well, there you go. But that's not really true. Now, Muslims are taught they're superhumans. They're the people who are dominating this planet. And it's all based on the Quran. But because the Quran is so vague and ambiguous, you need to interpret it. There's hardly a sentence in the Quran that you can take and say, is that what it means? No, you need to interpret it. And then you get all the various interpretations because everybody interprets the words differently. And then because everybody interprets different, they came with the hadiths, which apparently say, well, Muhammad was inspired by God, and therefore he knew exactly what the Quran meant. So the God couldn't express himself or herself or itself properly, so a human being had to come along and explain it. But it's also vague, ambiguous. The hadiths contradict one another. I mean, it says that Muhammad washed himself twice, and it says Muhammad washed himself 3 times. No, he washed himself 4 times. So which one do you follow? Well, now the humans have to come in and say, well, on this occasion he washed himself twice, here 3 times, so it depends on what you do, sometimes 2 and 3. Now, the Quran doesn't say that alcohol is prohibited, but the hadiths do. So why do Muslims now follow what the human tells them and not what the Quran tells them, which is apparently or supposedly written by a God? Beats me. But this is why we are here, and that is to show the background and to show what the Quran says about this. So what are we going to do today? I think I will leave the news for later. What I'd like to start off with is say, okay, we've had a couple of people that went apeshit in Paris, killed a lot of people. I mean, this is horrible. This is really, really, really terrible. I don't understand why this is necessary. I don't know why in today's day and age we still need to go and kill each other, why we can't just talk about things and square our differences just through conversation and through communication. But that seems not to be the case. So people are still killing each other. So a couple of people went crazy, killed others. Apparently, these are Muslims, or these were Muslims, because they did. Some apparently managed to get away. And now there's a whole lot of speculation because the people are dead, so you can't ask them anymore. And now people come, well, we found a passport. Well, where was this passport found? Well, nobody really knows. So how do you know it's one of the attackers? And just because it's a Syrian passport does not mean anything. Then it means, well, this Syrian passport was used to enter as a refugee. Well, so fucking what? We don't know how to assign these things. So people are speculating. Somebody finds a finger, takes a fingerprint and says, well, this belonged to somebody living in Paris. Well, this happened in Paris, a big deal. What a miracle that you find a finger of somebody who has a fingerprint who lives in Paris. Brilliant. So I think this whole thing, we need to wait until we get some facts. And whether we do get some facts, I don't even know whether this is ever going to be solved, whether ever we're going to know who actually did what to whom and why and what. And of course, Muslims are going crazy because now people are saying, well, these were Jews in disguise who actually are trying to, I mean, this is the whole conspiracy thing, and it's stupid. But what I would like to do is I would like to ask people before we get, because Alassa is here today and he's been to Pakistan, so, or maybe we should do that first. So maybe I should first ask Alassa, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to be a little bit more philosophical about the whole thing and not speculate about the origin and the identities of the people. What if you look at reactions of the people of Muslims today, when they hear of these attacks, some are saying, well, it has nothing to do with Islam. Some are saying, well, this is a huge conspiracy. So what would you think? And Allah said, let me ask you this first. What would you suggest to Muslims how they should react if they go and hear something about Muslims attacking others on this planet? Do you have any idea, any sort of suggestion what you would suggest to Muslims? Alassa is, I thought Alassa was here just now. Hello. He was here just now. Maybe he's going getting coffee or beer or something. Jeremy, do you have an opinion on this? Because I can see you are here. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. Does anybody else? Alassa is back. Okay, he couldn't find the button. Okay, who wants to say something first?
Do I have an opinion on it?
Yes.
Yeah. We need to de-Islamify Europe. You know my opinion on it, really.
No. I would like to know your opinion on what a Muslim should react. In what way should a Muslim react hearing that Muslims came and caused some shit in Paris? What would you suggest Muslims should do?
Read their Quran, especially chapter 9, which I was just reading now, and figure out how they can square that with living in peaceful coexistence with non-Muslims. Because as far as I can tell, there's no way to interpret that other than basically conquer the non-Muslims, and at best they can live, as an oppressed people paying a jizya to the Muslims, sort of second-class citizens. So how can they square that?
If you are a Muslim, what would you suggest? Imagine you are a Muslim, and now I'm coming to you and saying, oh my goodness, was this really necessary? Is that in the Quran? If this is in the Quran, yes, it's in chapter 9. How would you react?
Well, I'd probably have double think if I were a Muslim and I thought it was somehow compatible with Western civilization. So I'd probably just be in denial and say that, oh no, the Quran is somehow compatible.
And is this what you would suggest Muslims to say?
I'd suggest they read their Quran.
Okay, they know the Quran.
And figure out how they're going to square that, and if they can't, then deconvert from Islam.
Okay, so what you are saying, if I get you right, if I am a reporter now and I see you in the street, I say, are you a Muslim? Yes, you're a Muslim. I'm a Muslim. Okay, what would you say now that you hear that a couple of Muslims went and caused shit in Paris? You would tell the reporter, well, they have not read the Quran properly, because if they had, they would know that what they are doing is exactly what the Quran says, and if they don't find that compatible, then they should deconvert.
Yeah, basically. But
so you are saying if somebody condones this...
I'd also be interested, if I were the reporter, in knowing how that Muslim squared the, chapter 9, for example, with peaceful coexistence with other non-Muslims.
Okay, but that's not the claim at the moment. The thing is, only what is on the table is this Paris attack, and you're asking, what is your reaction to the atrocities that happened in Paris? Would you, as a Muslim, then say, well, I have no opinion, or would you say, well, this is some weird interpretation, or what would your reaction be if you were a Muslim?
Well, obviously, I'm not a Muslim, so it's kind of... Again, I think if I were a Muslim, I would maintain that I must be having this kind of double think going on in my head, that somehow, whilst the Quran is the perfect word of God and it's all perfect and nothing's wrong and you can't possibly change any of it, it's at the same time Islam. If I'm one of these Muslims who is one of the so-called reasonable ones, it's somehow compatible with Western civilization. It's the peaceful coexistence. So this double think would allow me to... Sorry?
So you would give him a puzzled look and say, well, according to me and my understanding, this is not what Islam says. The way that I understand Islam is that it's full of peace and full of peaceful coexistence.
Yeah.
Knowing
and then would I be confronted with actual quotes from the Quran? And what do Muslims tend to say when they don't tend to be confronted with this stuff, do they, by reporters?
Well, they are, and this is exactly what they're saying. They're saying this has nothing to do with Islam.
So they just pretend the Quran doesn't say it.
Yep.
So
And if it does, then it's completely misunderstood. Then you see, this is the funny thing, and this is why I'm wondering what reasonable people will say. But there is nothing that you can say, apparently. Okay, thank you for that. Alassa, do you have an opinion on this?
Well, basically, I tell all people, regardless of what their religions are, to read what it says in their religion. I points out the illogical parts of what it says.
Okay, but what would
And,
you say if you were a Muslim and you were stopped in the street?
well, if I was a Muslim, I would have left a long time ago after I just gone through the first 7 verses of chapter 2. But most of the Muslims that I know really don't like what is happening, and they point out that these people, they are not real Muslims, but their belief, they are real Muslims. That's what they believe.
And the others who are doing this are not.
And I tell them, oh no, they are. I tell them they are. I can show you the passages that they follow.
Okay, Abu, what do you say? How's Scandinavian viewing this? Oh, he's not ready with his microphone. Okay, so if anybody wants to jump in, just please do this. Remember that we are available on multiple platforms. So it's the Gin and Tonic Show. If you want to join in, you either go to live. Where is WZH with his screen when you need him? Either you go to live.godless.ch or you go to hangout.godless.ch. If you've missed it, you can go and check us out on archive.godless.ch. Those are the past ones. And you know what I just realized? Maybe we should make one for YouTube, a yt.godless.ch, because the YouTube channel doesn't have a name as such, because we lost that when the channel was false flagged. So we'll have to find a new one. But you can find the Gin and Tonic Show on YouTube if you look for it. And then you can, of course, see the archive there as well. So these are the different ways getting in touch with us. So if anybody has any kind of ideas on this and would like to contribute, go ahead and do so. Let me just quickly see if there are any thing in the chat. It seems France is where they have the most opportunity now, and Berlin is immune. Act with intelligence and arguments. Don't take the same road as with the censorship and imprisoning. We'll get attacked sometime. Okay, this is, I think, in Germany. This obvious that this is going to happen sometime. I've seen clips from Paris. The projects, the Black Muslims are quite editorial. The police. This is also true. Does anyone hear Jeremy? Yes, we hear Jeremy. I gave up on Vaughan. Has again trouble with settings. No, I have not changed the settings, and the settings look 100% okay. So I don't quite know why I would have. No, the stream is steady on 970. The microphone is flashing. Everything is going straight. So there it's going.
I don't see any problem.
Well, somebody is saying on Vaughan that I might have problems with my settings after the Win 10 update. No, I didn't do the Win 10 update. No, definitely not. They're going to ignore what you don't want to accept. Exactly. This is the cognitive dissonance. Dissonance or dissonance?
I just follow the link from your tweet, and it's great plus.google.com Hangouts. That link is working beautiful.
Yeah, but this is the difference, because you are now directly in the Hangout where you can talk. The live.godless.ch takes you to Vaughan TV, where you can listen, but you can't talk. You can only type. So this is what I'm reading at the moment. So you can have a type chat. So you can type and ask questions and blah, blah, blah. And there it seems to be lagging. And I thought we had left that behind. My today experience was an Arab followed me on Twitter, and he said, Allah does not kill. That is how you deal with terrorists. They can not be Muslim because Allah will not kill, so no Muslim can. Yeah, this is plain denial. This is exactly it. So my reply, which you not answered, what about the tales of Moses, Noah, and so on? Exactly. Allah kills in those tales, exactly. And this is the problem, that people will just simply deny this. They will say, well, the Quran says be gracious, be be nice and be this and this and this. And the violent ones in 9, for example, are only intended in self-defense, are not intended as an aggressive one. But then they're catching themselves out, because that means that specific sentences in the Quran are intended for specific times. And yet they claim that the Quran is timeless and is for all days and times and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't go anywhere.
I just posted an article on Type Chat from Huffington Post by a guy called, I think it's a guy called Ali A. Rizvi. He's apparently a Pakistani-Canadian writer, and he's kind of written this article which the first 4/5 of it sort of lead up to what I would say the conclusion is that you have to reject Islam, because he's sort of saying, well, it's not compatible with peaceful coexistence. And then the conclusion he comes to at the end is, he says, Islam needs reformers, not moderates, and words like reform just don't go very well with words like infallibility. The purpose of reform is to change things, fix the system, and move it in a new direction. And to fix something, you have to acknowledge that it's broken, not that it looks broken or is being falsely portrayed as broken by the wrong people, but that it's broken. That's your first step to reformation. If this sounds too radical, think back to the Prophet Muhammad himself, who was chased out of Mecca for being a radical dissident fighting the Quraysh. I don't know how to pronounce that. Think of why Jesus Christ was crucified. These men didn't capitulate or shy away from challenging even the most sacred foundations of the status quo. These men certainly weren't moderates. They were radicals, rebels, reformers. That's how change happens. All revolutions start out as rebellions. The thing is, Muhammad didn't have like a huge, 1.5 billion people against him saying, we're following the final revelation, and if you dare to challenge it, we're going to kill you. He was he had the luxury of saying, no, my revelation is the final revelation, because no one had sort of established a religion by that point that said that you're not allowed to challenge any of the revelations, and you die if you dare to challenge them. So I don't think people have the same opportunity as Muhammad may have had to challenge this existing doctrine.
This is true, but yet they have to. I mean, they have to do that. Otherwise, it's going to die. I mean, come on. People today don't follow this anymore. The young people, either I see two ways. Either they're radical, or they're saying stuff you, and they give God the finger. And that's the two things that I can see. And this is not going to change. And I think the people that are going to follow this 7th century doctrine, those days are over.
Well,
So,
there is a Pakistani writer. He writes in an article with regards to Paris attack, and he says jihadism is an Islamic issue, and 21st century Orientalists need to stop suggesting otherwise. I think he hits the hammer right on the nail.
well, Alassa, you've just been. What do the more integrated Muslims, the Muslims who are not in the West but who are living in the Middle East, what is your experience? Tell us about. I mean, especially about about the flight. What happened? That was quite funny.
Well, yeah, the only thing in that flight is they don't serve alcohol, and they start with the plane. When they start to roll, they play the Islamic prayer.
Hoping that God will suspend them in the air like He does with the birds, because no bird can be in the air without Allah. Okay.
Yeah,
What degree and level of confidence do you have in this?
I just listened to it and just laughed.
So do you have more confidence in Allah or in Boeing?
I had one Boeing for sure. I got no confidence in Allah.
So the boss of Boeing was more important than the boss of the heavens.
Exactly. But when I was there, I was treated very, very well. I mean, I had a little infection on my back, and I went to see a doctor. It was a really nice-looking dermatologist, and she was excellent. I told her I came from Canada, and I was in India before. She ordered some cookies and tea, and the people were excellent.
But was she covered though?
No hijab, no burqa. I didn't see too many women there with the burqa.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And another thing I was amazed, like I went to the villages too because my family had migrated from one of the villages back in Pakistan, and I was surprised that they actually, most of the people in the villages, they believe in their own spiritual leaders. They just pray. They absolutely know nothing about the Quran at all. Only that they should pray, but they all have their own spiritual leaders that they follow.
Okay. And okay, to what degree would you say there is like an integrated religiosity in Pakistan?
Well, it's very hard to say because I was in Islamabad, which is most of the people there are very well educated. I did not have the opportunity to go meet the people who are in minority, like the Christian minorities. But so I cannot say very much. Uh, but what I read in the papers is not very good. Integration isn't very good. There's a constantly fights going on between Shias and the Sunnis. So it's not a very well integrated country.
Okay, but the level of religiosity, I mean, if I think back about, for example, Dubai is less religious than Doha, for example, and both are less religious than Riyadh. So, how would you classify the religiosity, the level of religiosity in everyday life in Pakistan?
I think it's probably less than all of the Middle Eastern countries put together. I mean, I did not very little religious talk I heard from people that I met, and they were around me. Very little.
And you're not constantly interrupted by the muezzin?
No, 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 no. Actually, the only thing that I noticed there's a lot more inshallah, alhamdulillah, inshallah. You hear these things that you don't hear in the West.
Okay, but that's a culture thing.
Yeah. But I really didn't notice that much religion. The places I went to,
Okay.
I think they become more religious when they leave Pakistan.
Because I'd love to, because I haven't been to Pakistan for centuries, it seems. So I don't know. The last time was in the 90s, I think, or 80s. So it's a long time ago, and there it was harmless. So it must be worse now. GPZ, can you come on the Hangout and talk about this? Because I think this is just it's very interesting what you're talking about. But can you do this here on the show instead of now doing this in writing? Because I think this could be quite interesting.
Other thing, remember about 3 or 4 months ago we talked about Australia,
Yes.
and I said they were paying
Yeah.
other governments to take, and they were making a deal with Thailand, and
Yeah.
it stopped. It stopped.
What, they're
No
taking
boats
refugees
there.
now?
I'm sorry.
Are they taking refugees now?
No boats are going there.
Shit, this is amazing.
Because they start paying off the operators to go back, and then they made a deal with the Thailand. If any boat comes there, they will be diverted to Thailand, and they'll process them there.
Yes.
And since then, they haven't had any ships go there.
Ah, okay. I see what you mean. I thought it stopped. I thought the deal between Thailand and Australia has stopped, and Australia was now taking refugees.
No, there are no boats going there.
So they know what's going to happen. Now they're no longer interested.
Yeah, well, that they're no get to Australia. They will be, they have to pay their money to get back to where they came from.
Oh shit. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. The Young Turks. Je suis sick of this shit. Yes, I know. Come on, GPZ. Can't you get on the show and talk about this here instead of doing everything? Because now I will have to go and talk about this. What you are writing. This is a bit awkward. Why don't you come here and talk about what you're doing? What changed this time? Because I'm quite disgusted because I unsubbed from. I used to be a big fan. Then I don't know. It went down and down and down, and then what finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was this discussion with Sam Harris, and I thought there he completely lost it. And since then, I don't watch this anymore because I think it's simply too stupid. That I didn't know that he was that biased. I always thought that he was quite objective. So this is quite sad. Okay. It looks, he is here. Okay, then why don't you go and you talk about this? And then the bird, did anyone see the Thunderfoot video? He said something like 100% of London Muslims supported ISIS. Yeah, well, this is true.
Hello.
Hi, GP. Tell us about this thing that because apparently you watched the video where Cenk went apeshit with Paris. They had a live show?
They had a live show. It was maybe about an hour or two after the Paris event. It was a news-breaking story. And they started discussing it and were bringing up things like... you have to excuse me. I've got a huge diabetic headache going on right now, so I'm having a bit of problem thinking. Okay. They introduced the Paris shootings, and even though by that time it had been commented that some of the assailants had been shouting out things like Allahu Akbar, they were saying nobody knows who was actually doing the killing, so we don't know. So that was the first sort of like lie they were propagating. Then Cenk started going on about how we don't know who this is. It could well be radical Muslims. And then he started going on about skinheads and how it could be the radical right. And then he started bringing up Dylan Roof and how we shouldn't attack Muslims.
Who's that?
Cenk Uygur.
No, who's Dylan Roof?
Dylan Roof was the boy who went into the black church and then started shooting all the Christians.
Oh, okay.
And Cenk Uygur and the TYT team have been very critical of how the police didn't beat up Dylan Roof, but put him in handcuffs and walked him out of the building after the massacre that he did. And Cenk has been he took the judge's preliminary discussion over the case with Dylan Roof standing in a cell far away watching what was going on, and then asked if the congregation and relatives of the black people who had been murdered had anything to say, and they all stood up one by one and said because they were Christians they forgave Dylan Roof. But Cenk twisted that around and said that the judge had ordered the black relatives to forgive Dylan Roof because he was white. So you can see I'm explaining this in the way I have so far to give anyone listening an idea of where Cenk's mind's coming from. He just has this sort of policy of talking points. Blame white people, blame Christianity, blame the police, blame America, and he's used the Paris events after they happened to start spewing out this, it wasn't really the Muslims, you can't blame the Muslims, and then he was bringing all these people you should blame, like right-wing skinheads and the West for invading Iraq. It was absolutely disgusting. People were dying still. We were still just starting to get reports about how text messages were coming out of the concert stadium where the band, I believe, which was called Eagles in death metal.
Yeah.
They had a concert, and that some of the audience were trapped there and were typing out, "Please come and rescue us," because they are going round executing people one by one.
Shit.
And TYT was coming out with all this Islamic apologist rubbish.
I wonder why. I wonder why they think that they need to do that. I wonder why Cenk has this thing that he needs to protect Muslims. Does he think they are being unfairly treated, or what do you think?
There are theories that it's because he has taken a shitload of money from Al Jazeera. And Al Jazeera, as you know, are financed by the Qatari government. This is not made up. There's a bit about AJ Plus is part of the Al Jazeera network. Al Jazeera has supported now TYT, and I guess there's conspiracy now which nobody has any proof of, is are they actually putting money into Cenk's pocket? And is Cenk now using propaganda to please his Qatari masters because they've paid him off?
Abu?
I don't know if that's the case, but I guess if you would look like it as like a psychologist would look like it, I find it is that there's a common pattern among all people that are either involved in religion or politics, that they tend to become overly defensive of their view. So they have decided that they are going to focus on the crimes of the West, and therefore it becomes their objectivity kind of disappear. But this is something I think you can find everywhere in all political and religious.
Most certainly, that is a very valid point. There is definitely this a them and us side brewing up in the Islam debate. It first came to sort of a point of obviousness during the Bill Maher Ben Affleck program, when Ben Affleck decided to attack Sam Harris in a very, very aggressive way. And then you had Reza Aslan and Glenn Greenwald side on the Ben Affleck point of view,
of course,
and attack Sam Harris and everybody else who agreed with Sam. And I know that when TYT started getting involved in that, they were very pro Glenn Greenwald and Reza Aslan, and more anti Sam Harris.
Yeah.
So that goes back to
because they think they need to protect Muslims, which are being blamed unfairly and are being treated unfairly and do not get the representation that they deserve. And this is what they think, and this is why they climb in there, which is stupid, but that's the way it is.
I don't know. I watched TV. I watch his shows sometimes, and I think they're starting to get a little bit the quality of that show is starting to get a little bit.
They're becoming the Fox News of the progressive left.
Yeah, exactly.
The regressive left.
Yeah, or whatever you should call it. But this is a common phenomena, in psychology. I'm sure we are all doing this more or less. If we associate with a certain political party or anything, that we start to get these cognitive biases where we start to defend our own theory even where there is really no evidence and so. So to be objective and is really, really hard.
But now, Abu, what would you say as a Muslim what would your reaction be? Can you imagine you're a Muslim and somebody comes to you and says, well, Muslims have just attacked Paris. What would your reaction be? What would you reply?
It depends on what kind. If I would say that my point of view, it was in different periods, but in the longest period, I would say that the IS would be some kind of Khawarij, and that it's not supported by the God-sent law. So I probably wouldn't support it. I would say that they were Khawarij, and that is definitely not part of the Sharia and so on. But however, if you look at it from, but maybe I was like, that is like the Saudi Arabian kind of Wahhabism. I call it, I don't know what you call it, like soft Wahhabism, or like, I don't know what the word is in English, like feel-good Wahhabism. But if you look at it, except from the technological tools that they use, like bombs and AK-47s and so on, I mean, what have they done that the Prophet and his companions didn't do?
I could just ask the question on the chat about who gives a shit what Reza Aslan and Ben Affleck say about Sam Harris. Well, the thing is, when you get people in the media, public faces, starting to expound a particular belief, you get other people joining them until you get two camps of people, the pro and the against. Now, if the pro and the against have contacts with the media, that then starts to influence politicians, and politicians end up writing policy, and that's why it becomes a real problem. You end up with situations where people like David Cameron as Prime Minister will start saying crap like Islam is the religion of peace, because there's a lot of people telling him in the media that Islam is the religion of peace. And you can't say otherwise, because if you do, you become a racist and a bigot and an Islamophobe. So,
do you think Cameron...
I was wondering why he didn't call the Gin and Tonic show first before he said these things.
Do you think Cameron has ever even perused a translation of the Quran?
No, of course
or
not.
has he just been told by some politically correct people what it's all about?
He probably hasn't read it in full. He's an educated man, so he probably knows all about it. Educated men from the universities that he goes to, there's probably a good chance he may have read quite large chunks of it, but it's almost certain he has been influenced, because that's what people in universities do.
No, they don't read the Quran.
No, they read to be enlightened. And if it has come across his his educational career to be interested, then he will have read it.
Come on, like any intelligent, educated person who reads the Quran will put it down after 5 sentences because he realizes there's no sense in this.
My sister-in-law, she's been to university. I can cite other people who've been to a university. They've all read the Quran because they were told this is important. It's a historical book which lots of people adhere to as a religion, so they read it out of interest. Just like you might pick up a book from Shakespeare's years because somebody told you that Shakespeare was a literary genius, so you must read it.
Okay, but I think Cameron in this case has a whole, I don't know, a plethora of advisors and PR and blah, blah, blah people who will tell him, number one, this is what you say about Islam, and then the marketing people will go and say, this is what you say about Islam. So I think that all he gets is a briefing on what to say, because I don't think that he himself will have an opinion, that he will himself voice his own opinion.
We know from his previous reactions to events throughout the world that David Cameron's political philosophy is to follow the middle road and to appease people so that he might remain as Prime Minister and do the things that he feels are most important.
Okay, but this is quite interesting. Jess says he's a PR man himself. So then he can do this himself too, and apply the convenient filter.
I mean, he's already said some 2 months back that he was going to close down radical hate-preaching mosques. Has he done any?
I don't know. Has he?
No.
Okay.
Not one single radical mosque has been closed down, and we know.
Well, maybe the threat has been enough, and they stopped.
They are. They haven't.
That is quite funny. I mean, if you would, like in most of the Western countries, you have this. What is it called in English? Like you're not allowed to make hate speeches, and you're not allowed to promote violence and so on. The problem is with Islam is that they are reading the Quran loud, and especially in Ramadan they are reading the whole Quran, and in Quran there are definitely verses that are promoting warfare and so on.
Well, there's a
to put it mildly.
Quran, and then there's the Quran and Muslims, and then there's Muslims. I think we could basically say the problem Muslims are the ones who tend to follow the Wahhabi and the Salafist interpretation of religion. And when I say he hasn't closed any mosques, I mean those girls who run off to become jihadi brides in Syria, those mosques are still well and truly alive and going and still preaching that there must be uh, a separation between them as Muslims and the rest of England.
You know what I would say about that, but that's also I'm actually glad that they are not shutting down those mosques, because we made this mistake one time in one of the Scandinavian countries, that we shut down like the most like terroristic mosque, and what happened then was that like the security police kind of lost control of a lot of people. And
Yeah,
before,
they
when they
got
was in this mosque, they could like monitor them all the time, and they could follow them every step and so on. But when they shut it down, it became very difficult.
scattered. What country is it that is trying to stop the mosques preaching anything in Arabic? I can't remember where this was, where they said, look, you're allowed to have as many mosques as you want, but please not in this language, only the local language. And that's it. I can't remember where this was.
You know, that's not allowed, because the Friday prayer isn't valid if you don't make the khutbah in Arabic. It's
really?
like, yeah, it's like it's like reading the Quran. It's yubtil the salat. It's making the salat not valid.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think they make these kind of rules because they're completely out of ideas. They have no idea what to do.
Yeah, but where does it say that you have to read this in ancient Arabic?
It's hadith. No, sorry, that's fiqh. But it's like fiqh,
exactly.
salat.
So then fucking stop
So-
it. Then
so
tell
if-
them, listen, go swivel on my finger as much as you want to, but you're not going to do it in ancient Arabic.
Yeah, but then it's like they're gonna do it anyway because they have to. It's like
It's not
you
in
have
the
to.
Quran. I mean, okay, my sort of my bandwidth is rather limited here, where I say, look, if it's in the Quran, okay, it's part of your religion. If it's not in the Quran, it's not part of your religion.
Yeah,
It's
but
human-made.
most people doesn't look at it that way. I understand that you do that, but the absolute majority of all Muslims.
Yeah, but then the government should do
believe in
the same
fiqh.
thing. The government should say, okay, what is your religion? What is the basis of your religion? And they will say, well, the Quran. Okay, then bloody well go and do the Quran, but don't do it in Arabic. And if they then say, okay, we have to do it in this and this, then they just need to ask. I mean, come on. We are in a country where, I think anyway, where you can have a dialogue. So you talk to the people and you speak to the imam and you say, okay, what are the basic minimums to stop you from doing this in Arabic? Or if you need to do like the Lord's Prayer in Old Latin or something, then do the Lord's Prayer, but not the sermon. This is the whole point. So that you can actually monitor what it is that they are saying, and they can't go on the, talk to the media, it's the religion of peace, and then in the mosque say, go and kill the infidels in Arabic. This is the whole point behind it.
You know, you were saying earlier about how they do confront, just going back to the whole, if you're a Muslim thing, interviewers do confront Muslims with certain verses. Well, here's one that I don't think I've heard before. There's a 9:28 and 9:29. O ye who believe, truly the pagans are unclean. Pagans basically being any non-Muslims. So let them nod after this year if theirs approach the sacred mosque. And if you fear poverty, soon will Allah enrich you, if He wills, out of His bounty, for Allah is all-knowing and wise. Fight those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden, which has been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. How can you possibly interpret that as the perfect word of God and live in peaceful coexistence with non-Muslims?
How can you interpret that? Like, if you would take out the words like, what is it? That is in Surah At-Tawbah. So they use the word like, well, whatever, the mushrikeen. If you take out the mushrikeen and put in some other, like the Jews or something. Well, that's maybe some other part of it. But when you say like the black people or anything, I mean that would be clear hate speech, and you could go to jail for that.
What word were you replacing?
No, you replace like the mushrikeen, like the people who are making shirk or whatever.
Yes, but you can replace it with criminals.
Yeah.
Is that
But
the one that translates
no.
to
What I
pagan
mean
or
is
something?
that is hate speech clearly, but it's defended by this religious freedom act or whatever. But it's a double standard. If I go out and say kill all the blacks or kill all the that and that, I mean I will go to jail. But if they
So
say make that
Arabic word, that was an Arabic word, yeah.
yeah, it's an Arabic word. I can't translate
Does that
it.
sort of translate to pagans or idolaters?
Yeah, exactly.
Non-believers, yeah.
Yeah.
No, pagans, exactly.
Okay, but now the point what they're doing is they're saying, well, this particular sentence was revealed during a time when it was necessary to kill the people who were attacking the early Muslims.
But there's nothing in the Quran that says that. There's nothing in the
Well,
Quran
this is the
that
whole
says,
point.
"Oh, it doesn't apply anymore."
Yeah, but this is why I'm saying this is this is where apologetics comes in, where they simply make these claims, not realizing that they are digging their own grave. But the reporters don't know enough about Islam to catch them out. This is the whole problem. If people were to go and say, like put me in this situation where I would go and approach a Muslim and say, okay, we have this and this. Why do you think these things are happening? Why do you think that the Quran has these sentences? And then he will come with the standard apologetics. I would know how to catch him out. But the standard reporter is not trained in the Quran. He will not know this. He doesn't know Islam.
I actually think that the most important thing, even more important maybe than bombing and all these things, is to expose the apologists.
Yes.
Because the apologists, I mean, they are making the absolute most damage of them all. Yeah. I mean, it's better to have people in one way, like ISIS, that are very clear and like they are showing the evidence for everything they do, and it's very clear. This is fiqh, and this is, from the hadith, that, and so on. It's very clear, but it's like people like Reza Aslan and other apologists, I mean, they are making the most damage of them all, because they are just going to prolong all this process to get rid of all this bad stuff.
Give me your account number. I need to desperately transfer €1,000 on your account. That's brilliant. Yeah.
What?
Okay, that was a joke. Oh, shit. What am I doing? I'm digging my own grave here. No, because normally what you do, if somebody says something like this brilliant, you give them a medal or a prize or something like this. And I thought, okay, just you would actually go and deserve a huge prize for what you just said, because this is exactly what it is. You hit the nail on the head. You I don't know, you just went and put into a nutshell the entire problem, and that's just it. So this is why I said, just as you deserve a medal or you deserve €1,000 on your bank account.
But it's not like the reporters couldn't get, a bit more educated on the Quran, is it? I mean, are they sort of willfully ignorant?
Yes. Yes. Why would you want them to get educated on this if they ask a question once in their lifetime? It's not that you have somebody who is specialized in Islam who is going to do the reporting on Islam.
I think they're going to be asking the question a few more times now, aren't they?
Well, you see, this is in the long run, it actually is worth it. This is why I went and I contacted some media outlets, and I said to them, listen, don't you want to know about Islam? Don't you want to know the history of Islam? Don't you want to know where it comes from? Don't you want to understand Islam to get the background? And everybody said, wow, yeah, brilliant, come pull in. Yeah, and that was a couple of months ago, but nobody has yet actually issued an invitation. Because I said to myself, if I can do that, if I can go on a tour like something like this, then I am not dependent on the Middle East, and I can go and ditch my anonymity and tell them, listen, go fuck you. I don't need the Middle East, and I need your stupid visa. Then I can just go and say whatever I want to do, and I can do it in public. But so far, nobody's done this. Cutting down rights of all civilians, fucking Holland demands war. Yeah, this is okay. I think this is a topic that we've covered now. I heard some voices, and this is now the second part that I want to ask. A lot of people are saying, why don't we all get together and create a concerted effort to go and destroy Daesh, ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever, and go to war seriously. Put 100,000 men on the ground and go and kill everybody who is associated with this, and then we get rid of the problem. What are your opinions on that? Because okay, let me start off. I think this is absolutely stupid. I think this is ridiculous because you can kill the people, but you can't kill the idea. And unless you kill the idea, unless you go and educate people on what Islam actually is, what it means, and what it tells people to do, it doesn't matter how many people you kill. They're just going to carry on coming back and back and back with the same idea. So, I'm very willing to learn and change my mind.
I think Christopher Hitchens called it swatting the flies.
Yeah, but it doesn't help. I mean, you're going to get more flies. So there's no point in doing that. I think
that's part of the solution, it seems.
Yeah.
No, please. The solution is actually historically perfect. You look at any conflict where there have been two opposing sides, and I'll use Scotland as an example with Bonnie Prince Charlie and the Jacobites. The solution was to exterminate the Jacobites. When Bonnie Prince Charlie had his final battle in Scotland and he was defeated, the Highlanders were systematically wiped out by the Lowlanders who had British patronage. The follow-up is the problem. You could wipe out Daesh in Syria, no problem. But what are you going to do afterwards? What boots on the ground are you going to have to stop Daesh from re-emerging from the ashes? Because that's what will happen.
Exactly.
It's what happened in Iraq. Bush and Blair, they wiped out Saddam and his forces, and the only reason why, shall we say, the West has a responsibility for creating Daesh was because they removed the one person, Saddam, who was preventing them from actually becoming Daesh. The West did not put somebody in to replace Saddam.
Yeah, they needed a plan for a transitional regime to last.
Well, they tried all that, but they didn't put in a brutal warlord.
No, they didn't try to put in a transitional. Well, not for long enough, wasn't it?
Well, they tried. The wars. The breakdown occurred within about a few months after they disbanded the Ba'ath Party army. As soon as they did that, you had a lot of disaffected Sunni, and you had Shiites trying to gain political power in the whatever the capital is. I'm not sure. I've forgotten. But you started to get two religious groups, and I'm sure you could find their names in Google. But there was a Shiite one and a Sunni one, and they started to fight, and the Americans realized their mistake and sent back more troops to try and stop these two factions from fighting, and they tried to get them to go into parliament together. They got them into parliament together. They thought they were getting somewhere. Then you had WikiLeaks and the exposing of the fact that America had killed journalists. So Iraq had to say, well, you've got to get out of our country. We can't protect you legally anymore. So America pulled out of the country, and these two rival groups said, ha ha, we can fight each other now. And that's what happened. And they couldn't fight each other effectively in Iraq because the Sunnis didn't have enough financial support like the Shias did, because the Shiites had the political power at the time. So they buggered off over to Syria, where there was a war going on, joined in with that war, managed to gain all the finances which was becoming freely available, and as soon as they were financed and got enough military armaments, they were buggered off back to Iraq and started fighting the war they wanted to fight in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well, that's the history, but that's what happened. It wasn't just a case of the West pulled out too early. The West just didn't set up a dictator who was willing enough to completely crush all opposition.
And I suppose that's what you need.
You do. I mean, sometimes America makes the terrible mistake like they did with Al-Shabaab. If you look at Klingshaw's video about Al-Shabaab on the YouTube channels, what they did was they picked the wrong dictator. They found somebody who would give America what they wanted, which was military bases within on the coast of Africa. Gave him loads of money and military aid, and then that dictator went round slaughtering all the opposition. So of course the Muslims, well, sorry, shall we say, the people who were at the upper end of this dictator's barbarism and mass executions decided they had to fight back. Islam came in as a spiritual glue to bring them all together. So you started to get the Al-Shabaab religious movement to fight back against the dictator who America had supplied all the money to. But was America at fault? Only insofar as they gave them the money and the tanks. Nobody probably realised in the Pentagon that this guy was an absolute psychopath and he was going to go on a tribal rampage.
Well, I think any kind of intervention is a bit stupid.
Well,
In the long
America
run,
just
anyway.
wanted the basis, didn't they? They just wanted to protect the trade.
Okay, but how is that going to, how is a war going to affect the entire idea?
Well, they weren't interested in, they didn't even consider the war. All they wanted was American bases in that part of Africa, so they protected the oil routes, so the oil tankers could get through. That's all they cared about. So they got the bases, they bribed the government, they gave them all the money, they had a nice warlord who was willing to say, you can have bases if I can have money. But then this warlord decides to go around killing everybody. So that leaves the Americans in a really bad situation of, what do? Do you stop supporting this warlord, or do you keep supporting him? They chose to keep supporting him in the hopes that he would actually win the war, but he didn't.
Okay, but what I'm talking about is now the call for war to unite all Europeans and the US and Australia and Japan and so on, and everybody, and Russia, by the way.
So I'll go back to my original point. You can go over and completely eradicate the whole of Daesh and every single Muslim that supports this caliphate, but you don't kill the idea unless you put boots on the ground that are going to recolonize and change the political landscape. Eventually, without any sort of like new settlers there, Daesh will re-arise from the ashes because there's nobody there to stop them.
Okay, anyone else?
No, I wouldn't go there. They created their own mess. They're all geopolitical interests. Russia has its own interests. It's very easy to say, let's all go in there together. Then Turkey has its own interests. They actually support the Islamic State to have opposition to Kurds. They're fighting Kurds. It's a whole messy situation down there. I'd leave them alone. I'll just count my losses and get out, stop bombing them.
Yeah, that's what I would do as well. So what you are propagating is saying, let the Syrians sort out the Syrian problem, let the Iraqis sort out the Iraqi problem, and if the Sunnis and Shias want to fight each other and kill each other off, well then go ahead, but I'm not going to provide any side with weapons. Let them sort it out internally.
Exactly.
I think you have to go in with ground troops.
Why?
I think because if you're gonna let them, I mean, if you're just gonna bomb them from the air, that's not gonna solve the problem. You have to go in with the ground troops, and
with what result?
With the result that you clear the area, and that wouldn't get you won't get rid of the problem, but you can just. It's not good that they have a territory that they can.
Exactly. You might not be able to kill the idea, but as part of killing the idea, surely you have to deprive the idea of its own state where it can fester and be safe and all that. I mean, you're not going to be sort of persuade the Islamic State to become reasonable, are you?
No, you can't. And I think it's necessary to go in with overwhelming ground forces and just root them out.
Okay, the one example I always pull up is Nazis. Now, 70 years ago, it was a movement. Then it became horrible, it became violent, and then what happened is everybody got together and bombed the shit out of Germany. Now, what that did is it sort of, well, it killed it, but the idea still exists. You still get Nazis today. They're called neo-Nazis now, but I don't see any difference for them. For me, they're Nazis. Okay, whether you're a Nazi or a neo-Nazi, for me, is the same thing. You are still on the right. You're still radical, and you still believe that nobody else should be part of your country, and you are the one who dictates who gets to do what and how. So the idea is still alive. Whether or not it then falls onto fertile ground, I think, is a different story. But even though killing, if you go and kill, like, how many are there? 50, 60, 70, maybe 100,000 people. If you kill 100,000 people now in Iraq and Syria, everybody with an AK-47, then what have you achieved? You've achieved killing all those people, but then you've created more refugees. You've created, more area which is not really fit for living anymore. But what have you actually achieved? I don't see this.
Surely Nazism was massively weakened by the physical extermination of a large percentage of the people who believed in it. It wasn't destroyed, but it was massively weakened.
Okay, but today you don't get people believing this shit anymore. There are very few people.
Partially because it was enormously weakened by physically eliminating the people who believed it. Not all of them, but most of them. If you still had a population of millions of Nazis in Germany, it would be a much stronger idea.
Yeah, the problem isn't that this ideology is alive. The problem is when they get their own state and the army and weapons, and that's a huge difference. And therefore,
they not only got rid of the Nazis, they also closed down all the Nazi publication places. It would be the equivalent of closing down all the mosques. It would be the equivalent of saying to Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, you can't export your kind of religion anymore.
Okay, that's a good point.
That's controversial.
Why is it? Well, it's controversial only if you don't want to offend Muslims.
Yeah, it's controversial and probably true. Well, I don't think you should. I mean, I'm too much of a liberal. I don't want to. I want to defend like freedom of speech and so on. But
do you defend freedom of speech for the Nazis? Do you defend freedom of speech?
In some sense, I do.
Who want to exterminate all the Jews?
I mean,
where do you want to draw a line?
You should be allowed to. I mean, I hate your ideas, but I'm prepared to die for your right to express them.
Unfortunately, I don't anymore. I used to hold that view, but there comes a point where lines have to be drawn in sands, and you have to say, well, that idea is repugnant. It shouldn't be spread. It should be defeated in every possible way.
Necessarily that it's repugnant, but where I draw the line is where it's an idea that if it grows to be popular enough, it's an existential threat to the very civilization that allows it. That's where that civilization has to draw the line or die.
I think you start with I mean, if they have these ideas but they are completely impotent, then it's not really that much of a problem. So you can start take the weapons away from them and leave them with their ideas, and then we see what their idea is not going to be very appealing when they don't have any weapons.
Okay, but where do you put the hooligans?
Well, they can join their own like football hooligan.
Yeah, but where?
I mean, that's okay. I mean, I have nothing against that, but I mean, it's not good that these people have access to it.
I maintain that this is not only about ideology. I maintain that there are a lot of people who love violence. And this is what is happening there. This is what I see, that a lot of hooligans are now joining IS because they can go and say, oh yeah, we can go and kill and behead. Isn't that fascinating? I've always wanted to kill somebody and cut off the head, because this is something you're not allowed to do in the UK or in France, but here in Iraq I'm allowed to do it. So I think there's a lot of sick people who are joining Daesh.
Yeah, that's another psychological, like if you have a pathology in your amygdala, you're probably going to be quite sensation-seeking and all that kind of stuff.
And you're susceptible to their propaganda.
Yeah, but the most important thing, don't give these guys weapons. Let them go and join a like football hooligan, like I don't know, whatever. Let them do something else, but don't give them like weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. Don't give them all that territory.
Ventdol is making some good points in the chat. He's, to sum him up, I hope, he's saying, let them destroy themselves. They want to believe what they're believing in, and they will end up in fighting. But I'd like to say to Ventdol, the only problem with that was the reason why we got involved in this problem in Iraq and Syria in the first place. We were quite happy in the West letting them go around doing what they were doing until they started to pick on the Usadis, when they were chasing them up the mountain and wanting to slaughter all these people who weren't Muslims. Yeah. And they made them into slaves. So if we leave them to themselves, yes, they'll go off and kill each other, but they'll also go kill off a hell of a lot of people who have absolutely nothing to do with Islam or their beliefs. And that is the problem which the West face. How far do we let them slaughter people who want nothing to do with them?
But then I'm asking, playing devil's advocate, what happens if we put boots on the ground and if all of Europe, all of US, all the other countries get together now? Because I'm sure they can. I mean, they can bomb the shit and they can do whatever they want out of those people. But then what is the consequence of that? What is the result that we're going to achieve there? This is my question.
That's the problem with making decisions. You never know, but you still have to do the thing that is the least bad thing, and sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do because it's necessary. That's how life is.
Well, I'm somebody who maintains that, looking back, I say I wish I had at that time done that and that based on the information that I had. I had the information, but I took the wrong decision. So what I try and do is I try and project this and say, okay, what information do I have today that will in 2 years tell me you had the right information and you took the right decision based on that information? And how do I avoid the mistakes that I made in the past based on the information that I have today? This is what I try and do. And this is where I'd love to know, when is the cutoff point that you don't have another Hitler, that you don't allow the whole thing to progress to the stage where it was with him? Because the indications were there, everybody knew it, but they didn't stop him in time. And that's why we had all this.
I think that is a very good, I mean, when they saw that Hitler went into Austria and so on,
exactly,
they knew that if we don't intervene now, it's just going to become harder and worse.
Exactly.
And was it the right decision to wait? I don't think so. They should have acted way before that. They should have even let him get to build up his army again.
This is my question. How do we decide today something that we will not regret in 5 or 10 years down the road?
Well, that's the problem. You can't make predictions like that. I mean, of course you can. Maybe you're wrong, but I mean, I think it's necessary to go in there. You have to look at, like, it's like when you're trading on the stock market. Like, you have to look like how much can this stock fall and what's the potential for that, and you have to, like, if you go in there with ground troops, yes, there's going to be casualties, there's going to be a lot of Westerners going to die and a lot of IS members going to die, and yes, there's going to be resistance, but like the downside of that is not as bad as if IS would get really, really strong and later they would get hand of nuclear weapons or other kind of weapons of mass destruction or whatever. The downside if you don't act now is potentially very, very bad. So I think it's necessary to do something now.
Any other opinions? None.
Only that we should do what Sam Harris suggests.
What is that?
Invade Gaza and nuke them all.
But now, if we're along the line, what happens if we sacrifice Israel?
I don't think it will make a blind bit of difference. It will remove the one democratic state in the whole area.
I don't think that's even possible. So I think you should concentrate. I like to have kind of a stoic view on things. You should focus on the things that you can control. And you can control whether or not you can send in ground troops to the area that has control.
These are thought experiments we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Of course, you didn't think I actually meant we would nuke the whole Middle East.
No, exactly. And this is the whole point. I mean, neither did Sam Harris. I hope not, at least. That this was just an idea that would solve the problem once and for all, and we wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But I mean, that's stupid. If you think about it in reality terms. But then, if I look at all the different solutions, or no, they're not solutions, all the different options that are being proposed at the moment, I wouldn't know which one I would favor, because I don't really believe in violence. I don't believe in war. I don't believe that we should be engaging in killing other people just to get our ideas across. Either our ideas are good, in which case others will adopt them, or they're not, in which case, well, I need to rethink them and either come up with something better or just simply abort it.
It's not about getting ideas across, it's about self-defense.
It's about protecting what you call civilization and
yes,
what we define.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So if Islam comes to me and says, listen, you need to convert, you need to believe what I believe, I will give them the finger and say, fuck off. Now, if they don't accept this, why should they now go and kill me instead of saying, oh, hang on, he doesn't like it, maybe I should rethink it? If they go to the next person, they can say, well, maybe this guy was stupid, let me try the other 15. And if
the question shouldn't be why should they be allowed to kill you. It should be a question of why aren't you allowed to kill them before they kill you.
Well, you see, this is the whole point. Don't kill anybody. If somebody comes to me and says, well, you need to be a Muslim, I will tell them, no, thank you. Then they go to the next one, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. So if they've done this 15,000 times, they should start realizing, the penny should start to drop, that there's something wrong with their idea. So instead of killing 15,000 people, they should maybe rethink their idea. And this is why I don't want to kill them just because of their bad idea. I would want them to go and learn from their experience and come up with a better idea, which is not so stupid.
But they haven't. What they've decided to do is to kill you after you reject their idea. So
and that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. We should be beyond that.
So but the problem we get from all of that is the politicians saying, because they reject your idea, because you reject their idea, they now want to kill you, but you're not allowed to fight back. We will defend the people who want to kill you.
I mean, I have sympathy for Stop Spamming's approach. However, if you look at the consequences of that, and in an objective way, and if your goal is to have some kind of utilitarian approach to it, to maximize well-being,
exactly, yeah.
Then it doesn't work. I have a lot of sympathy to that idea.
Thank you for that.
You have to look at it. You have to look at reality as it is.
It comes down to Christopher Hitchens and what he said about toys. I hope everybody's heard that Christopher Hitchens quote, but if not, you should go look it up.
No, why don't you tell us?
Oh dear me, it's long. Okay, I'll try and sum it up because it is a very long quote.
We'll do the concise version.
You can have your toys and you can play with your toys, but don't expect me to invite your toys into my house or my children to play with your toys. We don't want your toys. We're not having your toys, and you can keep your toys.
There you go. So it was so quick, and I think this is exactly the approach, and that is what we should do with them. Raven, welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. What have you got? And concise.
Well, I don't know what you've been talking about. I thought that.
Okay, thank you very much. Then that was concise.
It's on YouTube. It's an hour and 25 minutes.
Okay, good. All right. Any other ideas from people who know what we're talking about? No. Okay, then the last thing I'd like to raise, and then everybody can go apeshit. One thing I noticed, which made me cringe, is a huge poster that you see everywhere, which says, "Pray for Paris." And I want to throw up when I see this, because that is the most sickening theme that I have seen in my life. If these really were Muslims, this is exactly this. This was a god responsible for all these attacks, and then they say, well, pray for Paris. Which god do you fucking pray for? If it was a god who attacked Paris, or somebody attacked Paris for their god, which god are you going to now pray to? Who is going to make something undone? This is stupid.
Saying don't pray on Twitter. I saw it when it started.
Prayers are great because they're the one thing that you can do really easily where you don't actually have to, go to the effort of doing anything real.
And it makes me throw up when I see this "Pray for Paris." It makes me want to slap the person who came up with this. I thought there was going to be more reaction.
I thought you were against violence.
Okay, in this case, I'll make an exception. No, this guy I want to slap, really, because he's such an arsehole. Who could come up with something so ridiculously stupid?
Tony Blair?
Then I'll double slap him. Oh, goodness.
I'm sure the IS dudes says the same thing. Pray for Paris, that Paris become a part of IS.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put a fence around it. Okay, if that is all, then let me just quickly go through the topics that I had lined up, because one thing, because I didn't really want to talk about Paris. I thought we don't have enough information about it, so I think that we should not think about this yet.
The only other thing I had was that I posted earlier. Let's post it again. That at roughly the same time the Paris attacks were happening, we had a bunch of arseholes in Bedford in the UK who met for this kind of Islamic question time, and they were talking about how Muslims in the UK need to struggle for an Islamic state in the UK. I mean, I think these people are basically treasonous, and we've got to do something about them, really. I don't see why they should be allowed to raise children, brainwashing them with this kind of treasonous stuff. I mean, where do you draw the line?
The really sad thing about that is the event itself was labelled as kind of like a Q&A for people that don't know much about Muslims or might be like a bit nervous about it. It was basically an Ask a Muslim event. It wasn't Ask a Muslim, it was just blatant propaganda and bullshit. Segregated, of course.
Of course.
No women on the panel.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Strange.
Well, have you ever actually met a Salafi that wasn't walking hard on?
I don't know. How do you recognize a Salafi?
I just usually assume that anyone that ramps on the streets looking like a homeless Santa is a Salafi.
With the what?
I just assume that anyone who roams the streets in a dress looking like a homeless Santa is a Salafi.
Oh, okay.
No, they have they shave their mustache and grow long beard. That's the Salafist.
And wear a dress, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if all Salafis look like that, and I don't know if everybody who looks like that is a Salafi.
Yeah, but a lot of Salafists actually are peaceful Salafists. They don't.
I was actually making a joke when I said that. I wasn't being completely.
Yeah. No, nobody takes you seriously anyway. So what the hell?
Well, apparently Alazzo was.
Yeah.
Alazzo,
No.
you're the only one that values my opinion.
Okay. Is there anything else that we should be talking about?
I think the UK, anyone who in the UK who supports multiculturalism, just needs to look at this event and say, is that the future of the UK you want? Is that the the Britain you want to live in the future? Sure as hell is
I'll
what
get
I want to
myself.
live in.
Yeah.
Has anyone commented on the Mail on Sunday article written by Majid Nawaz?
I've seen a few things written by him, but it's probably
What-
something to do with separating Islam from Islamism.
No, the one in response to the Paris attacks.
No, I've not had a chance to. I have had a
That's-
chat with
there's no
Seda
mention of this.
Majid,
Well,
but
but
he
what
seems
Majid-
obsessed about the naming of ISIS.
Well, what the basic premise of the article is, he commented on what Obama said when Bin Laden was killed. Is this the death of Al Qaeda and jihadism? We shall see. And obviously, it turned out to be not at all the death of it. But Majid Nawaz just kind of made the point that one of the things we tend to do wrong is we send bombs to far-off lands without really grappling with the fact that so much of the fighters are coming from our own shores. It was actually quite an interesting article. But no, the basic premise is we're fighting overseas or bombing overseas without really coming to grips on tackling the root cause, which is foreign fighters, and which is like the sympathizers for ISIS and this type of mentality in our own country. Thoughts on that? Comments?
When people go off to fight in Syria, I don't know why we don't have a policy of removing their passport. I suppose they can just come in as refugees, which goes to the next thing, which is that we need to control the unlimited immigration to Europe. I mean, Jean-Claude Juncker came out and said that they're not going to change the EU. They're not going to make any changes to the EU asylum policy or something, or immigration policy. It's like, is he actually working from the inside to try and destroy the EU by just ramming the most ridiculous foreign policy ideas down everyone's throat? Because it seems like that's what he's trying to do, really. Just no changes at all.
Yeah, I mean, one of the terrorists in the Paris attack, he had a Syrian passport, didn't it? He got asylum via Greece.
Nobody knows.
Even if that's not true, I mean, come on, there's going to be a bunch of ISIS sympathisers and fighters coming through as part of the hundreds of thousands. There just have to be.
Well, you've got to imagine no one is stupid enough to not realise that.
Realize what?
That among some of those refugees, some of them are going to be plants.
Are there?
Well, what's the actual term for it? Sleeper cells?
Yeah, but that sort of assumes that they are intelligent enough to think of that the way of making that connection.
They didn't have to think about it because ISIS declared when the refugees started coming across the Mediterranean that they were going to send Daesh killers over into Europe and make use of the opportunity of getting them smuggled in, make use of Merkel's open adoption policy.
I was looking on Twitter, and that activist group in the heart of the Islamic State. Where was it? Is it Raqqa is being slaughtered silently?
Never heard of that.
It's basically people that live there or that are now living in Turkey because they've fled from the Islamic State. I have to commend them. They are quite brave because if they actually get caught, they're the ones that take pictures and kind of like give an insider view on exactly what's happening. If they're caught, they're going to be killed. But Raqqa is being slaughtered silently. If I'm pronouncing that right, it's Raqqa. Raqqa?
Raqqa?
Raqqa.
Probably. Well, anyway, so they tweeted a picture from February of this year where they said that they'd actually warned Westerners about the Parisian attacks. And they highlighted the date, which I think said February the 21st, where one of the members of this group had overheard Islamic State fighters actually saying that they're sending people to France and that they're planning an operation in France.
Okay. I'm just reading the chat at the moment. In ever increasing numbers in Europe, exactly. The Muslim birth. Okay, I don't know if this is a serious question now, because Islam is dying, and what you get to hear from Muslims in response is that number one, it's the quickest or the whatever largest growing religion in the world, and blah blah, which is bullshit. And they quote an old Pew prediction, which was not based on facts or anything. And the next thing they say is that we will kill you with our birth rates. Well, the problem with that is that the birth rates have gone down. In Iran, it's even lower than in Europe at the moment. And the birth rates have acclimatized or have sort of adjusted to what the other levels are. They used to be a lot higher, where they used to have 7, 8 children. But this is of the past, and this is gone. But some Muslims don't realize that yet. So with the time, Muslims will hopefully become pretend Muslims like the cozy Christians became. Exactly. This is what is happening, is that, I mean, even, come on, I'm not even going to talk about Dubai or Abu Dhabi, but if you say I'm not going to go to the other extreme and talk about Riyadh, but I'm going to talk about like middle ground, which is Doha in Qatar, which is still religious, but it's halfway in between, and even there you can see it. Where I'm sitting outside with Muslims out in the hotel garden and having a water drink. They will not drink alcohol in public because too many people will see them. They will have alcohol if they're at a private party, but not in public. But they will sit outside outside a hotel, and they will sit with non-Muslims, and you can just have a chat, and it will be women and it will be men. It will be a mixed crowd. There is no problem with that at all. And this is the new reality. And you see women driving, you see women partaking in everyday life. You get the university, you get the Qatar Foundation, for example, a brilliant campus, and it's full of women. In Iran, for example, women are very, very well educated. So it's not only like that. The new reality is a lot more modern. It's just that some places, like in Indonesia, they're still trying to bring it back. In Pakistan, they're bringing up Rasim. So there are pockets of this conservative Islam that you still get, but in general, if I generalize, the young people are no longer that way inclined. Like I said in the beginning, either they're radical or not at all, and the radicals are in the, I don't know, single-digit percentage range. So that's the way that I see reality today.
You said the population growing thing was a myth, but it's... Yeah. Wikipedia does say Islam's the fastest growing religion in Europe, but it also says that the Muslim population will increase over the next 40 years, reaching 10% in 2050.
Yeah.
So I mean that's pretty damn significant.
No, but look at the source, because you need to remember Wikipedia.
Pew Research Center.
Yeah. Okay, but what? You see, this is exactly what I'm trying to say. Wikipedia has sort of become a Muslim propaganda site. But you need to look at the sources. And if you go to the source, you will see this is the same outdated Pew resource that I was quoting just now, which is a prediction, which is not something based on data. You'd slap and pray for Paris. Oh, you'd slap the pray for Paris guy, but say no thank you. Yeah, you see, I'm not a very polite fellow, but the pray for Paris really pisses me off. I mean, I don't know. This is something where I get really aggressive when I see stupid things like that. Really, I mean, that is really pathetic. Pray for Paris. I mean, that is so ridiculous. Then you have Breitbart, London, exclusive as Paris, Bird, UK, they told Muslims to struggle for Islamic State in unprecedented Islamic show of force. Okay, I don't know what that story is about. I'm not going to go this here. UK response to Paris. I'm not going to go that. Japan's still obsessed with religion and rituals, doesn't need to bring all the crap with it. You see, this is the point. And this is where we get back to what we've been talking about on the Gin and Tonic show for the last 4 or 5 years. We need Martin Luther to come and reform Islam. I don't know if this is going to be Majid Nawaz or Irshad Manji or all these other people who are doing so, but it desperately needs it, or it's going to die. I mean, if you look at, you'll see this in the hadith today. It's exactly this. People are so used to buying themselves out of sins, out of, if you can drink as much alcohol as you want, as long as you then donate some money to some good cause, you're out of it, because Allah is going to forgive you. Allah is the merciful one. You can do whatever you want. And this is the whole point. And this is where the Catholic Church was when Luther came along and said, listen, you can't go and just pay the church something and the church is going to forgive your sins. It doesn't work that way. And that's exactly where we are with Islam. So, look, reference to the source, because anybody can write shit, and this is what exactly this. I mean, I made a video where I showed that a Muslim, well, I think it's a group actually, it's not one guy, made 70,000 false entries in Wikipedia before they managed to block the entire group.
70,000?
70,000.
Wow.
Because, I mean, in the beginning, if you look, I corrected all the mistakes when it came to Dr. Moore, when it came to embryology, when it came to all these claims, when it came to 1001 inventions, when it came to Firnas and Khwarizmi and Al-Haytham and even Sina. And in the beginning, I still had this ambition that I will take up the cause and I will correct Wikipedia and blah, blah, blah. It didn't work. Because as soon as I changed something, a couple of hours later, it was back to where it was. So, I don't do this professionally. I do this as a hobby. So I spend maybe 10 minutes a day doing something. But they are professionals. They are being paid to sit on Wikipedia and issue all this stuff. So I've given up on that. I just don't use it anymore, and I tell people don't look at Wikipedia when it comes to Muslims. And you can see it, because as soon as it gets into something a little bit more scientific, then they stop, because they will tell you that there's this huge scientific thing about iron and blah blah blah. But then if you go into iron and you look at all the different isotopes and you look at the numbers, then you will see something completely different. You will see that they say, well, the bees have this number of chromosomes, and this is what it says in the Quran, and this is exactly sentence number 16, and they have 16 chromosomes and whatever. But if you go into bees and you find how many chromosomes they actually have, you can see it's a different piece of information that you get when you see it in connection with the Quran. So they're superficial. They provide apologists with the top layer information propaganda piece, but they don't go below that. So this is the way that it works today.
You know, the really ironic thing is these are probably the exact same people that talk about some kind of global conspiracy.
Yeah.
like when we talk about the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the First World Order, it's like there's a global conspiracy, and then it's like an M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end. I'm the conspiracy.
Yeah, that's quite weird. Okay, we have 15 minutes left. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
If this has already been discussed, then just tell me, and instead of going into it, I can just watch the show later. But this whole thing, the whole Pray for Paris thing. I mean, isn't it kind of is it that bad that so many people, Muslim, non-Muslim, are actually expressing condolences and well wishes?
Well, there's condolences and there's condolences. Saying that you need to pray is not a condolence. That's an insult.
Yeah, well, I mean, this actually came from France, I think, the whole Pray for Paris thing.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of
come on, who are you going to pray for?
But I'm saying a lot of it when if someone actually says, pray for Paris, it's like when someone says our thoughts and prayers are with you. It's not necessarily that they're actually praying to a specific God. It's just it's condolences, it's well wishes. My thoughts are with you, my sympathies. I'm thinking of you.
Okay, for me it's an insult. For me it's callous. For me it's not thinking. For me it's like somebody. it's a knee-jerk reaction. Let's pray for this. Like the same guy as this Lewis Hamilton. I mean, I hate him with a passion, and he's also, yeah, let's all pray for the people in Paris. Who the fuck are you going to pray for? For the dead? Well, it's too late. They're dead, man. And if you're going to pray for the survivors, they're not going to be helped by you.
I finally figured out why you've got such a problem with this, because Lewis Hamilton endorsed it.
Yeah, maybe that's. Nah, come on. I saw it yesterday before the race, and he didn't win today, so it's okay.
Well, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't be that upset about it. This is a reaction that would come out of religious people. That's what they would say. They have nothing else.
Exactly, but it's nothing. What is it?
There's nothing else to offer than prayer.
And this is it. And so it's so unthinking. If I would have, for example, my wife, if my wife she went to the concert and blah, 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 and now they made people lie down on the floor and then they just fight into the group of people. If you were hit, well, then tough shit. So now I go to the concert, I think, oh, my fuck, my wife is there. I go there, she's dead. Okay, now somebody says, pray for Paris. What?
Well, like I was watching the video, people running from the concert hall. Then the next day I see a whole group of people with the sign, "We are not afraid." That was funny.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but okay, at least we are not afraid. That is taking a stance. That is doing something. That is telling the people, fuck you. But pray for Paris. I mean, that is so ridiculous.
I was actually quite impressed on the night it was happening with a lot of the updates that were coming out of Paris. Taxi drivers turning off the meter, a lot of them after that, just offering people free lifts home. There was a Twitter hashtag going around that was basically offering shelter to anyone in need, like, just complete strangers, offering like their place of business or their home to anyone that needed a place to stay. And a lot of what came out of Paris was, I think it really did show a lot of humanity. And it was one of those things. It was a very heartwarming thing to see in the midst of such not a tragedy, but a devastation.
There is humanity on this planet. There is, but
it was nice to see.
Why so little?
I misinterpreted that hashtag because I saw this hashtag come up, porte ouverte, open doors, and I initially assumed it was about open doors immigration into Europe. So then I clicked on it and realized, it's a hashtag about people giving shelter in Paris.
It was complete strangers offering refuge to complete strangers. It was quite nice.
Brilliant. Okay, anything else, or should we call it a day? Because I'm not going to open up any more topics now. All right.
The whole daylight saving things really threw me when it came to when this show is going to be on.
You want to go what?
Never mind.
I don't know. At the beginning, I didn't catch it because you were mumbling.
Never mind.
Okay. Ike, are you going to do the thingamajig, or am I going to do it, or how are we going to do that? Because today we have, like I said before, we're going to have a hadith which is about the pillars of Islam. Because I don't know if you know, in Islam you have 5 pillars, which are supposed to be what is supporting the entire Islam. And so it's not in the Quran, just as the Shahada is not in the Quran. You get none of these in the Quran. People have made this up. So you need to believe, you need to pray, you need to pay, you need to fast, you need to go on Hajj. So these are the 5 pillars that apparently make up Islam. And these 5 pillars have been decided by humans.
There's so much more than 5. I mean, you've got the 6th pillar of Islam, context, the 7th pillar of Islam, time, the 8th pillar of Islam, Islamophobia. I mean, there's a lot more pillars to that.
No, but hang on. No.
I especially love
beliefs. No, you have more beliefs. There are different things when you talk about beliefs and when you talk about things like that. I'm talking about the 5 pillars of Islam that apparently or supposedly make up the whole of Islam. Hang on, I double-clicked on... there we go. In Islam, we know that we have 5 pillars, at least for the Sunnis, which is believe, pray, pay, fast, and go on Hajj. Now, Muhammad somehow did not know this, because according to Sahih Bukhari, in volume 4, book 53, number 327, he has Ibn Abbas narrate something about the delegates of the tribe of Abdul Qais, and who said they need some insurance. So to do 4 things, and forbid you to do 4. 1. I order you to believe in Allah. That is, to testify that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. 2. To offer prayers perfectly. 3. To pay zakat. 4. To fast the month of Ramadan. And then number 5, almost the 1/5 of the war booty. So that's 5 out of 4. So actually, oops. Okay, that was a bit. I don't know what happened there. I think the whole bandwidth of the entire internet has collapsed. Let me just to make sure that we get the message right. The Prophet said, I order you to do 4 things. Number 1, believe in Allah. Number 2, offer prayers. Number 3, pay zakat. Number 4, fast the month of Ramadan. And number 5, pay the 1/5 war booty to Allah. So in other words, he first says, I give you 4 things, and then he gives you 5. And the other thing is, he says you fast the month of Ramadan. You don't. You just skip lunch. You don't fast for the entire month. That's stupid. Now, to offer the prayers, nobody knows what the prayers perfectly actually means. Nobody knows the prayers. It's all down to human interpretation what they say. So this hadith is actually quite ridiculous, and it shows the level of the hadith, and it shows how useless they actually are. Okay, that was the hadith of the day. Alassa, do you want to contribute one for next week?
Yes, I will. Actually today I'm not sitting at the computer where hadiths are, so I would have one next week.
Are you going to short circuit with Ike?
It depending on what kind of a hadith. Some of them will not come out right. Some of them might, depending on a hadith.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right, and here let me just put this up on big. This is the way that it works, because if you want to go the next time and go and just type something and type chat, well, God willing and bandwidth permitting, go and click and type in live.godless.ch. If you want to come here and talk to us, then just go and type in hangout.godless.ch. If you want to see past shows, you go to archive.godless.ch. And if you want to go and see the collection of hadith so far, you can go to HOTW, Hadith of the Week, on YouTube. And there you can see all of them. And I hope that next week we're going to have somebody here, a Muslim, that we can talk to. That would be really great. He asked whether I want to, whether I accept it. I said yes, with pleasure. So, but he's threatened to do this before, and then he ran away. So I don't know. Hadith will be available in 2 or 3 minutes on hotw.godless.ch.
I actually have a quick question about that, Hadith. The part about giving, was it 1/4 of the booty to Allah?
5th.
Oh, how do you actually do that? Is it like slitting a lamb's throat or something as a sacrifice, or like how do you give it to an imaginary being?
No. The way that it works is 1/5 is for God and 1/5 is for Muhammad, and Muhammad will take care of the portion of God until he demands it, and then he will give it to him.
So it's not something.
It's a little bit difficult once Muhammad dies, isn't it?
Actually, that's true. I've never thought of that, because then how do you split it up? Because then 1/5 of the estate is not actually his estate. Or then maybe the heirs will assume, no, he has, as he died, he transferred 1/5 of everything to God, so everything that is left here on earth is for the left here on earth heirs too. I mean, they're going to find some practical solution. The same way as they say that 2/3 of the inheritance is for your 3 daughters, and then actually they get 16/96. Oh, goodness. No, this is so funny. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much, everybody. And remember, I've given you instructions if you want to join next week. We're going to have another exciting episode next week. Thank you very much for the people who came in and contributed and talked and blah, blah, blah. We wouldn't have the show without you guys. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And if anybody has a suggestion, or if anybody wants to know something, or a correction, or a comment or something, please feel free to contact me. See you next week. Bye-bye.